9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to today's keynote presentation of the opening session of Mar Dreamin'. Hope that video got you guys pumped up. That music made you want to dance or do something active. If you're here to talk about navigating the new, how and when to adopt the next best thing, you've come to the right place. I'm Andrea Tarrell, the CEO of Circante and the founder of the blog The Spot. I'm a Salesforce MVP, a marketing champion, and I'm passionate about helping marketing teams succeed and build fantastic careers on the Salesforce platform. Side note, I'm also the mom to a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old and a very loud German Shepherd. So I'm really hoping that none of them participate in today's keynote. But I'm very excited to welcome you all to the 4th annual Mar Dreaming. It's hard to believe that it's year 4. As some of you remember, Circante started Mar Dreaming during the pandemic in 2020 because Dreamforce was canceled, all the world tours were canceled. We were looking for a place to connect. But Mar Dreaming has really taken on a life of its own. And that's thanks to the support of the community, the support of all of you who are here today, and the support of sponsors. Today, we're welcoming marketers from around the world to talk about some of the edgiest things happening in our space. You'll also notice in our content lineup that we prioritize hands-on, in the trenches experience shares. So featuring customers and consultants who are in the tech day-to-day and can really share those lessons learned with authenticity. We're committed to making this the #1 place for marketers on the Salesforce platform to share their knowledge, network, and grow together. And we're really glad that you decided to join us today. Speaking of some of the partners who drive growth, I have to take a moment to say thank you to the amazing sponsors who have contributed to this event. The companies that you see on the screen here are all in and committed on helping marketers get the most out of their investment in Salesforce and on building tools, processes, and support to bring our marketing visions to life. Also got to say thank you to the folks at Salesforce that help us make this event a success every year. The folks you see on the screen have shown up hard and they really believe in community in a big way. I'm constantly grateful for the way that they truly give back and invest in their customers and create a supportive, inclusive environment where we can all do some of our best work. Massive thank you also to the Circante marketing team. The only person pictured here isn't Christina, but they're so good that they make this event look easy. But as anyone who's worked in marketing, marketing tech, marketing ops knows, the hardest part of our job is making things look effortless outside looking in. But we all know the hard work that goes on behind the scenes. And then finally, I want to say thank you to all of you for being here. I know it's not easy to take time away from day-to-day work, job and life responsibilities. And it's really easy to just say, oh yeah, I'll watch the recording, and then you just never circle back. I take your investment of time very seriously, and I want to make sure that the next 3 days are packed with impactful, relevant content that will help you thrive in your role. So before we dive into the keynote content, I'm going to hand the virtual mic to Angelica to take us through a few housekeeping items and a few logistics for the next couple days of the conference.
Thank you, Andrea. Hello, everybody, my dreamers. Welcome back to our veteran attendees, and of course, a special hello to our first timers. Go ahead and share in the chat with us which one you are. Is this your first time? Have you been attending Dream for the past 4 years? You never know when you're going to meet a new trailblazer and friend. Let's cover some goodies you'll want to know. Genius Bar is back. There are limited appointments. So if you are not familiar with the phrase Genius Bar, these are one-on-one consultations with an expert, basically free consulting. If you take a peek at your navigation bar, you'll see a Genius Bar tab. This is where you're going to go to book an appointment. Like I mentioned, they are limited availability, so get your free support while you can. Secondly, don't forget to build your agenda if you haven't already. You can easily add them to your calendar or favorite them from the agenda tab to make sure you don't miss out on anything. Tracks include account engagement, marketing cloud engagement, data and analytics, and what's next in MOPS. And lastly, but most importantly, yes, sessions will be recorded and can be accessed starting 24 hours after Dream ends, so on Friday. You'll head right back here to watch the recordings. There is just one session that's the exception to this rule, is our product roadmap happening tomorrow afternoon. That's being hosted by Salesforce, all about the marketing cloud and what's coming up. So be sure to attend that live. Now, let's move on to some of the new and shiny happenings at Dream this year. We have 2 brand new tracks, data and analytics, and of course, some forward-looking topics in our What's Next in MOPS track, which is my personal favorite. This also wouldn't be a true Dreamin' event if we did not introduce new content themes to keep up with the ecosystem. So keep your eyes peeled for sessions on hot topics like data cloud and AI/GPT. Lastly, and most exciting, is Dreamin's free resources tab. It's going to include items like the 2023 Gartner Magic Quadrant report shared by Salesforce, an ebook by PFL on delivering powerful moments across customer lifecycle, and a free Salesforce app by Sercante Labs called Automated Opportunity Contact Roles. If you know the struggle of contact roles on opportunities, then you know the struggle. There's a free app that can fix that for you. There will be a break this afternoon, so be sure to take a minute and explore that free resources tab. And speaking of hot topics, we have Salesforce joining us for the rest of the Dreamin' week with content you won't want to miss. Many of these sessions are user-led, and Salesforce will be chatting about topics that are in the most demand right now. Today, speaking on data cloud for marketers. Tomorrow, we also have the keynote, the product roadmap rather, and our closing keynote, which is all about marketing in the age of generative AI. So really quickly, what else do you need to know about the event platform that you're on right now? Just a few simple things. We get it. Virtual events are not the same as in person, but to me, there's no better place to learn than from my own couch. And virtual events definitely don't give me jet lag or sore feet, may I add. If you've been a busy bee and didn't have time to build your agenda, the good news is that you can just follow a specific track. And it's Goldcast, or the event platform that you're on right now, is going to push you to the next session in that track. So you can just sit back and relax while you're watching your Dreamin' TV. To do this, head over to your agenda tab and select the track that you're interested in watching and click the purple button that says follow that said track. You'll know you've done this right once you see a little bell icon next to the track that you've selected. You can also switch tracks at any time on the agenda tab or in your session that you're currently on the lower left-hand corner. All right, let's cover our last housekeeping slide before I pass the mic over to Andrea. You've heard me talk about some of the awesome tools on the free resources tab, and this is what you'll see once you're there. Also, did I forget to mention some of the resources are ungated? Otherwise, what I like to call one-click magic. Okay, let's get ready to dive into our opening keynote. Andrea, I will pass things back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Angelica. We have a packed agenda for this week and lots of goodies to explore on the platform. So appreciate you walking us through some of the highlights. So without further ado, let's dive into the keynote. Our topic today is on one of the challenges that we're constantly faced with as marketers and as technologists. And that is, how do we navigate new trends, new technologies, and the changes in the world that shape our businesses. If you follow Sir Conte or you follow The Spot, you know that we are all about real talk. We share a lot of unvarnished opinions. And on that theme of real talk, how do we sort out what's real? Like what headlines we should be taking seriously, what's hype, how to get the timing of new investments right for all of our businesses. I think one thing is for sure, we live in one of the least boring times in human history. We are not going to want for interesting problems to solve soon, whether that's at work or in the world at large. The number of times that we've been able to say unprecedented times with a straight face is literally a joke at this point. At times it feels invigorating. There's always a new mountain to climb. There's always a new dragon to slay, always something new to look at. But at times, though, it honestly feels exhausting. The newest headline feels like more of a burden than it does an opportunity. And at times, I know when I'm reading some of the news and some of the headlines in MarTech, I'm asking myself, do I really need to know about this? Because how am I supposed to find the time? We brainstormed a ton of topics for this keynote. We kind of did an inventory of, okay, what are the biggest shifts that we're seeing happen in our space right now? And what would most people be most interested in hearing? And it's a pretty long list, as you can see. All things AI, of course, which you're going to be hearing about in the closing keynote and throughout a few sessions this week. We considered talking about the world of work and how things are changing. We're seeing big shifts in the type of roles that are required. I think that will further evolve kind of as AI continues to grow in prevalence. New generations entering the workforce, shifting sentiments on the whole work from anywhere mindset. We talked about maybe the keynote being on the 800-pound gorilla that is data cloud. You'll also be hearing a lot about that this week. But ultimately, for the opening keynote, we wanted to kind of take on somewhat of a meta topic. And rather than pick a single shift to discuss here in the keynote, we want to talk about how we make the call on what new things to adopt, how you pick winners when there's shiny objects everywhere that you look, and how we make smart bets when our careers and reputations are on the line. I think another part of that theme too is how do you balance the next new thing, the emerging tech, with some of the fundamental foundational things that you just need day to day to run your marketing program. And one kind of quick side note, I am keeping an eye on the chat. If you see me looking to the side, I'm seeing what the chatter is about. So if you have a thought, if you disagree with something I'm saying or want to +1 something, I'd love to hear it in the chat because that's the only way we can make it conversational in this virtual environment. But today we're going to be talking about some models and frameworks for navigating change and evaluating when is the right time to make the move on something for your business. And small spoiler alert, the part that I'm most excited about is we have 2 special guests joining us, Eumee from Lucid Motors and Andy from Insurica. And they're going to give us an inside look at how they're thinking about innovation and how they're guiding their organizations along on this journey. So thinking about what we see with new technology, new trends, there's a very predictable progression that we see for almost every new thing that pops up called the hype cycle. There's this initial wave of, okay, this is going to rock our worlds. This is the best thing that's happened. And a spike of excitement, fear, energy around that. I think Mark Benioff called it existential dread at one point in their emotional processing around AI. After that, there's a small group of people that just go crazy for the new thing and really dig in, like are some of the first movers on that. And then what we see is a huge wave of vendors, people that are trying to sell you something, jumping in saying, hey, we can do that. Some of them might be the real deal and have a product that can add value. Others, frankly, are peddling smoke and mirrors and kind of just trying to piggyback on what's sort of the next big thing. After that, there's almost always a reckoning and a reality check. Things aren't as easy as we hoped. It's not as slick as it looked in the demo. We realize there's still a long way to go. And in that moment, we start seeing some of the hard behind-the-scenes work actually translating into business value. We start to see more mainstream use cases, examples that apply to our businesses, and start seeing the product that's delivered matching the promises that are being made. And again, this cycle goes. This cycle is so pervasive that Gartner drew this beautiful representation of it that many of you probably have seen before. They actually came up with this back in 1995, and several other like thought leaders and think tanks have sort of remixed this and put their own spin on it. One of my favorite authors, Seth Godin, has a model similar to this that he calls the dip, but that's applied on a bit more of an individual basis. I think the beautiful thing about having a pattern and seeing the trend and having sort of a visual representation of this is we can use this as a tool to better navigate change in our own organizations. We can look at new technologies with this as a lens and say, okay, where are we on this curve? And when do I want to make my move here? So as we talk through this, I know we're talking about this kind of as a macro theme, like theoretical, but if you have something on your mind, a new technology that you're vetting or a new initiative that you're trying to push forward, I'd ask you to kind of think about this through what you're considering. Like, where would you assess that is at on this hype cycle curve? Gartner has charted the progression of at least hundreds, maybe thousands of innovations along this hype cycle, and calls out some of the big moments that are clues that tell us sort of where we are. I realize this font is very small. We will be sharing the slides and links to the Gartner source material on this. But some clues to understand where we are in the process is things like how many customers are there? How many suppliers and vendors are there? Have we seen the rise and fall of products, or are we still kind of in the early days where everybody's just getting started and focusing on potential? Media coverage and VC attention can also be an indicator of where we are kind of on this journey. It can be hard to gauge this outside looking in because most tech companies will act like everyone is using their product and you're going to be left in the dust if you don't like jump on it immediately. So another thing to consider is like, are there users or people that can share firsthand stories that you can learn from as sort of a reality check to that. So I'd like to hear from you all in a quick poll. As you look forward in your organization, so you should be getting a little prompt that says go to the polls tab. I've listed a few of the innovations that we see coming up most often. So generative AI, data cloud, loyalty, several other initiatives. When you think about your organization over the next 12 months, what stands out to you as the most likely thing that you're going to either actively evaluate or make a move on? And if you have something that's not reflected in these options, I'd love to hear that in the chat as well. It was hard to keep this list short. All right, some votes rolling in. We'll allow maybe another 10 to 15 seconds here. All right, so kind of a mixed bag. It looks like generative AI squeaked ahead with one more vote than analytics. Analytics is one of those areas that I feel like we're going to keep coming back to because it's how we prove our value. It's how we make the case for future investments. And the tool set behind analytics continues to evolve. And I think that one will never be a theme that goes away. Awesome. Well, thank you all for weighing in on that. So it sounds like some people lost the poll. We'll find a mechanism to redo that because I want to hear some more feedback on where you all are at with that. So I have another model to introduce. We talked a little bit about how we can orient ourselves to like where a product is at on the hype cycle for something new. And once you kind of you're oriented to, okay, here's where this product category or this new innovation is at, the next step is sort of looking inward at you, your organization, and how early or not early you want to be. You've likely seen this model before too. This model predates Gartner. The first reference I found to this bell curve type of model actually goes back to 1956, and it was used by researchers to explain how farmers adopt innovations that can impact crop yield. So a little history lesson there. But there have been lots of variations on this model, and I suspect that's one you guys have seen before. I think it's important to keep in mind that there isn't a right or a wrong answer or a place where you absolutely need to be on the bell curve. Every decision should be considered through a lens of your industry, who's on your team, what your resources, both financial and time, look like. On a personal level, it's fun to be like in the know and a first mover on things, like keeping up with trends, saying, I knew that band before they were big. But in the business world, you don't always want to be in the position where you're chasing or where you're too early. There can be good reasons for every step on that path. Whether you're an innovator, early adopter, early majority, late majority, laggard. And for each stage in the path, there are different products and different promises that are going to resonate. There are also going to be different requirements. If you're looking and saying, okay, my organization tends to move in the late majority, but I want to push us ahead on this particular initiative, you're going to have to change your approach with your organization. If you come in guns blazing, trying to drive change, you're going to have to win over some hearts and minds as part of that process. And you may find that you have some old patterns and habits to break within your organization. No matter where you make your move along the hype cycle, there are risks. Angelica, can you click one more slide? We talked about a secret signal that I'd give to her if I needed her to advance the slide, but sorry. No matter where you decide to make your move on the hype cycle, there are risks. You could be too early, you could be too late, you can swing and miss and have to deal with the fallout from that. Or you could just be late to the party and adopt something that is kind of over and done with. And no matter where you make your move, there's also unique opportunities to capitalize on. So if you want to be an early adopter, think about how you could maximize publicity value and just milk the PR juice for your industry. That's a huge opportunity at that stage. If it's more attractive to you to let other people kind of get the battle scars early, learn the lessons the hard way, and then benefit from what they've experienced, coming a little later to the party is also a great place to be. So assessing your risk tolerance, assessing where your organization falls, those are a few things to think about. But that's enough about theory and models for a moment. I want to talk about a real where the rubber meets the road example and invite Andy Paden from Insurica to join me on stage. Andy is the VP of Marketing for Insurica, which is one of the nation's largest privately held brokers of P&C, employee benefits, and personal lines insurance. Insurica is based out of Oklahoma City with 31 locations and over 650 people on their team at the last time I counted. Have those numbers changed, Andy, or are we still, is that still the ballpark?
They've changed in a positive way. We're growing. We're in more than 35 locations, 11 states, and almost 750 of us by now. So we're growing. Yay. Thanks to all the help from Circonte that we've gotten.
Well, thanks for that plug. But you guys have amazing momentum, and I admire the way you show up in your industry and some of the things that you guys are embracing.
Well, thank you. I can only imagine how excited our audience is today to hear from an insurance guy. I mean, not an industry that probably inspires a lot of excitement, but believe me, it's fun to be innovative in a relatively old-fashioned industry. I'll have more to say about that in a moment, but it's good to be here with everybody.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I'd love to hear more about innovation at Insurica overall. Can you tell me about a time where you spotted an opportunity to do something new and like it came at just the right time and had a solid impact?
Sure. I might even kind of go back to the beginning. I know we don't have a ton of time, but just to give everybody sort of a scene setter idea, for some reason, insurance as an industry is still pretty old fashioned. I mean, we're not clueless enough to think that disruption might not come someday. And about 8 years ago, I think we sort of got the religion, if you will. Well, we sort of realized now would be the time at the latest to really prepare ourselves to be a leader, to be an innovator, to be a disruptor in an industry that is due to experience disruption, and we didn't want to wait for it to happen to us. We wanted to get out ahead of that. But I think just briefly, one of the reasons, maybe there are many reasons, but insurance is kind of an old industry. It's regulated state by state, so that makes it a little bit tougher to disrupt. I think those disruptor-minded people out there have picked off other industries, but we feel like they're going to eventually get around to insurance. In fact, some of my colleagues, and believe me, I play a role in our innovation efforts, but there are many of us, starting with our CEO. He's innovative minded, and so he's created a structure that we all have fallen into, and we all work, across many disciplines, all with an effort toward innovation. We have a monthly meeting called Insurica Next, and that just is a way for us all to stay connected and share our ideas and also what's going on in these different areas. But 8 years ago, we decided to plant our flag, to create some, visionary guideposts that help us see into the future. Guideposts are things that we're never really quite there, but they are sort of North Stars for our innovation efforts. Coming out of that was something I think important, that we decided we wanted to use data as a weapon. And that's easier said than done in our industry, because as an independent insurance agency, as Andrea said, we're among the top 50 of all agencies in the country. There's probably 40,000 insurance agencies in the country, so that puts us sort of up near the top. We wanted to use data as a weapon. It's hard because we represent literally thousands of insurance carriers. And so getting everybody to share data in the way that we would like for it to be shared is maybe impossible. But we have figured out good ways to use data as a weapon. A few years ago, we hired our very first data scientist, and now he's got a staff, and we use data analytics. We push that information to our colleagues through Microsoft Teams. Power BI is the thing that we use. And because of those innovations, and Andrea, I'll now just give one example, because we won a Mardrimi Award for it last year. Thank you very much. But the National Department of Transportation, for example, they publish data on a monthly basis of everybody that has a DOT number, all the big trucks and carriers that travel the interstates across the country. A lot of those companies are customers of ours. And we figured out a way to harvest the data that's free to the public. But then with Sercante's help, we figured out a way to really filter that data, put it in a graphically pleasing and easy to understand way, deliver it through fancy HTML emails to our customers and our prospects. And what seemingly is really simple as we describe it, the point is no other agency, and these folks are not getting that data any other way. You can log on to the Department of Transportation website, but it's like a data lake. I mean, there's just no way for a common person to get into that data and find anything that's relative specifically to them and their company. We deliver that information to them. It's automated, and it goes right to their inboxes every day and every month. And for us, the real benefit there is that it sparks conversations between our customers and our producers that serve, and the teams that serve those customers. And it really creates a bond, a customer-provider bond that is, I wouldn't say unbreakable, but it certainly is difficult to break. And it helps our customers achieve what we want them to achieve. That's best-in-class status in their own industries. And the data and the knowledge and the information and the wisdom that comes from that really makes them able to run their operations better, safer, and more smoothly.
I think that example that you just shared is the perfect example of how great marketing makes it look easy, because the final output of that project, I know, is this beautiful looking email that helps carriers monitor have they had inspection activity, safety violations, keep a pulse on that massive amount of data that you mentioned. And I know that behind the scenes, lot of data wrangling, a lot of like sending things between systems, figuring out how to make it work. But that like elegant, simple final product is a huge value add to the folks that receive that.
I just love those things that seem simple on the surface, because then you know all the technology and hard work that went into that project behind. And nothing better than our customers to think, oh, this is cool and it's so easy to understand, and they have no idea the effort that went in behind it. But the fact that they find value in it is the payoff, that we know that we did something good. And that's just one example of the kinds of things that we're doing in partnership with our data science team, being able to deliver insights to our customers that they would not otherwise be able to get themselves.
So when you think about that adoption curve, kind of that bell curve graphic that we just looked at, how does Insurica think about like where you guys want to be on that adoption curve, and how do you keep a pulse on like what's new in your industry and what you need to stay on top of?
We definitely want to be in that early adopt. No, well, is that the second category? We don't want to be on the bleeding edge. We want to be on the leading edge. We have said in our industry, we seek to have an 18 to 24 month lead on our competitors, which means we don't have to be out there wearing Google glasses, in the 90s or whenever it was, but we want to be able to be ahead of most everybody in our space. How do we monitor that? Well, we've got great partners, Sercante, Future Point of View out of Edmond. We have thought leaders inside our organization that participate in not only industry groups inside insurance, but certainly in just forward-thinking groups outside of our industry. I think everybody on this call today is a consumer. I mean, even though I mentioned that we're in an old-fashioned industry, I live and shop and interact with service providers in a modern way. And so I sort of have this expectation then of what it's like to deal with, a great bank or a great healthcare system or a great retailer and all those things that we do. So I think we bring a lot of that experience to the table as well. We experience certain things with other providers that we think our customers would expect to receive and experience with us. So that sort of helps push things forward. But again, a little easier said than done. In our industry, we have so many other partners that also have to be committed to innovation and sharing data and being technologically savvy, that we end up being a little bit of a champion in our industry. We meet with many of our insurer partners, the markets that we place insurance with for our customers. And we're starting to tell them, hey, y'all, if you're not on this, innovation train, if you're not starting to use data as a weapon as we are, and being able to share, willing to share with us, your partner, to the level that, we don't breach any confidentiality or anything like that. But we're going to be able to be partners with like-minded companies into the future. And those that don't adopt technology, innovation, using data as a weapon will probably be left behind. It's one reason we're growing so much. As I mentioned earlier, some of our agency partners that join us realize that we're a little further ahead than they are. And rather than sort of invent the wheel again on their own, they just join us and become part of the Insurica family, and we move forward from there.
Yeah, I think you raised a great point about like the partners and vendors that you're working with, kind of setting the bar for them also, because I think once you start leaning into that posture of innovation, you sort of naturally attract like other people on your team internally that have a similar mindset, external partners that can help you get there, and like people seem to like kind of group towards each other on the adoption curve.
Right.
I've definitely had the experience once or twice in my career where I was out of sync with the organization that I was at, and that becomes a great lesson in like how do you win hearts and minds and rally people to move in the direction that you want them to move.
That's a great point. One of the things that I think you and I have talked about just individually before, I said insurance is old-fashioned, but it's also old. there are older folks, older professionals are in our profession. How do you bring younger people into our profession so that our industry can perpetuate itself, let alone our own company? Well, in the last 8 years, and again, we're partnering with you all essentially in helping us do this. But we've built a digital agency. I think a lot of it will go sort of nationwide next year. Spoiler alert. But the point is that that's where all the young people are, and that's become an innovation laboratory for us, because a digital agency, the agency of the future that we've built, it's about a $10 million a year agency right now, which is awesome. That would be one of our larger business units, if you will. That's where all the 20 and 30-year-olds work at Insurica, and they're excited about the industry. And I think it's because of the platforms that we've built, the innovation that we're bringing, the ability to have a continuum of care as it comes to data. This is a paper-heavy industry, and it's just a burden on our customers. They have to answer the same questions over and over again, fill out forms over and over again. And the fact that we've built, sort of a seamless channel that takes that data from them once, and then it's cataloged and it's there for us throughout the whole process, it makes it a better experience for our customers. So maybe next year we'll talk about Insurica Direct and that digital agency that has gone live.
So I hear that's the fastest. You mentioned that's the fastest growing division of your business. Are we in a situation where like the digital experience is going to replace our jobs? We're going to eliminate the need for humans. What's your view on that?
Yeah. Well, at least in our industry, and we found this, it's so interesting. Did I mention that the InsurTech Connect conference is happening in Las Vegas right now? There are a ton of tech-oriented companies out there looking to help the insurance industry. What we have found, though, it's so interesting. These digital agencies have launched many times in the past few years, and there are maybe insurance curious people out there that are looking around, but they will not click buy. They just don't have the confidence to spend that much money on a product that they still don't know an awful lot about. And so I don't think we're going to be replaced. We feel confident in that. And I think that's the cornerstone of our digital agency. It's a digital experience, but it is infused with a personal person-to-person contact with experts that can answer their questions and give them the confidence of completing a transaction, getting the insurance that they need, but do it in a more modern way. We spent a couple of intensive days last month, our leadership team, looking at AI, not just generative AI, but all the other kinds of AI. And I think we realize the power of that tool. We'll be investigating that, learning more about that, incorporating more of that AI into our organization over the next 12 months, certainly. But I just don't see that it's going to replace our workers. It is going to make our workers more efficient. It will, through robotic process automation and other AI tools, it'll remove kind of the dirge of their job, and it will free them, what we like to say, for their highest and best use, really putting their knowledge to work, and the way they interact with customers. That is their highest and best use, and issuing certificates and booking policies and doing that menial stuff that happens many times a day. If we can remove that from them, it'll give them joy, more joy in their jobs. And I really think it paves the way for the service component of our industry for the future.
When I think about insurance, and when I think about, honestly, any industry, it seems like there's always, most of the people I talk to are really struggling to find talent and figuring out how are we going to grow our team? How are we going to do all the things that need doing? And there's more than enough work of the day to be done. And there's always sort of this category of work that's like, this is it takes so much time. It takes so much energy. Our team doesn't really like doing it. Like if they didn't do this, they could focus on XYZ. Have you had any success automating any types of tasks like that?
Yeah, we, again, our data and innovation team get all the credit for this, but I'm sitting in those Insurica Next meetings watching them demonstrate what they've built, and it's just crazy. An example would be robotic process automation. I mentioned that earlier, but one particular thing, a lot of our customers have autos, fleets of autos, vehicles. Auto is a generic term in our world. So it could be trucks, delivery vehicles, vans, service vehicles, and all that. And you can imagine a company that has like 100 of those vehicles. Some are being sold, new ones are being bought, companies are growing. So they're always contacting us saying, hey, vehicle number 73 with this VIN number is now not on our schedule, but we're adding vehicle number 126 with this VIN number, this make, model, year on this. And VIN numbers are like 16 or 17 digits long. And you have to type in that stuff and issue security verification cards and get those vehicles added to the policy so that they're insured. You can just begin to imagine what a task that can be. And when you've got somebody making, I don't know, close to 6 figures a year, just spending a day just processing that kind of information, that can get boring in a hurry. So our innovation team built a robot that sort of reads those kinds of emails. It knows that those are the kind of things. It picks those emails up. It goes into our agency management system and does all the things, because this is just a very repetitive step-by-step thing. And then all of that happens sort of in the background. And so our service team gets a notification on our agency management system that the robot has done all those things. All they have to do is just check it one time, make sure that it's accurate, and click OK. And it does all the things that we need, from sending the security verification card via email to our customer, and then booking all of that activity inside our agency management system, notifying the carrier that this new vehicle needs to be added to the policy. And it takes maybe, I'd say that's probably a 10 to 15 minute task each and every time. And I think we estimated that this robot now has given us so much value that it's probably the FTE equivalent of 5 people a year. So that's only going to increase. And again, that doesn't replace anybody. It just frees our experts to do what they do best.
That's amazing. And I don't know where you sign up for the robot that scrubs your email and enters data for you, but I'm signing up for that.
Right. Well, our team is looking for those processes that they're kind of no-brainers, just things that don't. In our industry, some of our competitors, including us to a degree, will hire teams of people that might be in China or India, people that just data input all night long. That's an expensive thing. That was the old solution to getting these kind of things done. And now we have built robots. You know what? And robots don't take vacation. They don't get sick. They don't cost a lot of money. They don't typically have attitudes, and they're great employees.
That's amazing. Andy, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your story.
My pleasure. I appreciate it.
So next, we're going to move on to talking about how to drive change in your organization. So we wanted to make sure we were leaving you with some actionable takeaways, some ideas of how you could apply this to things that you're working on. So we're going to dive into the practical tips portion of today's presentation. So 5 tips, 5 keys to success that I want to walk through with you all. Gathering the facts, thinking through business impact, looking at pace and phasing, finding who can go with you on the journey, and then nailing the message of why and why now. So first step, if you're evaluating a new area of innovation, is getting more information. So popping your head up and understanding what is the current landscape for this technology or this trend. Where can you educate yourself? Are there blogs, videos, university programs, paid trainings, conferences like this that can help you learn about something new? Sort of inventorying, like, where can you find like more pieces of this puzzle? And then thinking through who else is doing this. Are there examples of this at play, even early ones? Like, who in your industry is doing interesting things? And can you find those people and talk and connect with them? And then with that in mind, thinking about, again, the hype cycle and the stage of maturity. So from there, estimating business value and thinking about the impact it will have on the business. Talking about features and some of the things that we as marketers get excited about don't always resonate with the whole team. So thinking about rooting in the impact of the business, like what might success look like. It's also great to think about what could failure look like. Like what's a bad outcome in this scenario? And when thinking about like quantifying this, thinking about dollars saved, time saved, alternatives, kind of competitive advantages, thinking about both the upside and the downside of making a particular move. So thinking about questions like, will this give me an edge? Like, what's the risk of my competition getting on this before me? Like, where are the efficiencies gained? And then from there, if you've said, okay, I'm looking at this shiny new thing, I believe it's going to drive change in my business, thinking about what are your options for rolling that out. So how you might go about like setting the timing, setting the stages, thinking about the actual rollout of that. Yep, there you go. It's tempting to treat new initiatives sometimes like it's an all or nothing thing, but that's rarely the case. So thinking about what the small version, the medium version, the large version of the effort might look like for going in on new tech. It's also critical to think about like what else is going on in the business. Does this align with other internal priorities? Are there things that have to be done prior to this for this to work? Are there any other internal initiatives or goals that this can align to? I've definitely found the most success pitching new technology when it's not another new thing, but it's kind of piggybacked on something that the organization is already aligned behind. So if there's a goal around tackling a new market or achieving some sort of metric, like how does this contribute to that? So it's part of the process and not another new initiative. Finding allies, the importance of this cannot be overstated. And Andy touched on this a bit in some of his comments, but thinking about like how you make your pitch and who can do that with you. I have a quote that I have on a sticky note on my computer that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I don't have a citation on my sticky note, but that's a quote that has always stuck with me. Because it really applies to the challenge of driving change in any organization. So figuring out who needs to go on the journey with you. In the interest of time, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this slide, but this is loosely inspired by another model called the customer alignment life cycle. But basically thinking about like for each of those 5 stages of the adoption curve, what motivates people that fall into that sector? What will be the trigger for them to adopt? What will be the selling points? And I think this is a really useful framework to thinking about who in your organization you need to pitch and what is going to hit home with them. So if you're talking to somebody who gravitates towards the laggard role, you got to meet them where they're at and not talk to them like they're in one of those other camps. And then lastly, nailing the why and the why now. So going back to that business impact, how do you articulate the change it will deliver for the business? And on the why now front, like what are the other things that are going on that factor into this? Are there macro trends, headwinds, tailwinds, things that are going to contribute to the success or failure? What is the risk of somebody in your industry moving on this before you? And then how do you balance the shiny new thing with the core operational needs that you have to stay on top of to run the business? So I'm going to invite our next guest speaker up to the stage, Eumee from Lucid Motors. When I think about innovation, Lucid Motors is definitely one of the brands that comes to mind for me. Lucid is a pioneer in the luxury electric vehicle space. If you haven't seen one of their cars, they're just like beautiful. But they're focused on the future of sustainable mobility and designing a luxury electric car experience that reimagines the driving experience overall. So Eumee, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So what I wanted to touch on with you is because I know you manage web and email for your team, which are huge channels. How do you balance like innovation, the next new thing, with the stability of existing operations and like keeping things running that you know are working and delivering value?
Right. So the first thing I want to say is sometimes it can just be really difficult to be innovating while you're trying to maintain your existing operations. So with Lucid, we're a relatively new company, and I would say like our marketing team is even newer. So something that I'm a huge fan of is, anytime we're trying to do something new, I like to kind of take the same mentality that you would use probably when you're, doing testing. So something I'm a fan of is just trying to maybe innovate or test with a portion or a segment of people, if possible. I know you touched on this in a previous slide, but also just like setting a success metric, feeling like what success looks like. We have a saying here too where we like to crawl, walk, and then run. So, you don't want to jump into something and for it to be like a big failure. So I think just being mindful, there's always, like you mentioned too, there's a right time to be implementing and doing something. And I'm always a huge believer that anytime you're innovating, you always want to be improving upon something, right? So whether it's something internally, right, whether you're becoming more efficient in the way you're operating, or whether it's improving that customer experience. I mean, ideally it would be both, but those are my how we balance that.
Yeah, I could not agree more with that, because that crawl, walk, run approach, it just makes sense. And I see marketers sometimes falling into the trap of thinking like, okay, if we can't run, we're not going to do this at all. But usually there's a way to get something off the ground. And to your point, like a test audience or a pilot or something to like dip your toe in the water, show value, and like get buy-in for the next stage.
Totally. I think another phrase that I hear often too is like fail fast. So it's always, it's okay to try new things. And, not everything you do is going to have 100% success, but it's important to try it, learn from it, and then move forward.
I think you also touched on a really great point around like any new thing that you're introducing, focusing on like what is the real tangible benefit to what we do today, like theoretical benefits, or like if we were doing this, this would be great. Doesn't go that far. If it's like, hey, this is going to save us X number of minutes or X number of steps in this process or reduce errors, that's a lot more compelling of a pitch, in my opinion.
Totally. Yeah, I think sometimes a lot of people think innovation is only like on the customer front, but people who are in marketing who are doing the execution, I think it's always important to just be working efficiently. Like you said, it can help increase quality, efficiency, and all that.
So when you think about data and analytics, because that was one of the top things selected in the poll is things that people are focused on. When you think about the role of data analytics in deciding what new initiatives you're going to pursue, how do you think about that?
Okay, so I think pretty much most of us, or hopefully all of us here, are making data-driven decisions. We're always constantly measuring, all our channels. The ones I focus on, though, obviously are going to be web and our email metrics. So we have like certain KPIs and stuff that we're tracking. And when we're looking at when we want to innovate or try new initiatives, you know what, I actually feel like there's kind of two schools of thought on this. So one, of course, is, you're going to be looking for ways to increase conversion, close gaps, and that's kind of when you'll go back to your drawing board and see, what's new, what can I do, what haven't I done yet. But the other school of thought that I always found interesting too was sometimes when things are going great for your company is also another good time maybe to try something new, because I think when things are going great, your numbers are great, it's kind of when you can afford the risk of, trying something maybe a little outside the comfort zone. So that's kind of how we would think about, like when and what we want to innovate. And the other thing I'd probably also add was, when working with like your data and your metrics, it's just super important to work cross-functionally. I know, Andrea, you just touched on this in a previous slide, but if you're working in marketing operations, I always kind of feel like you're at the center of kind of the company, right? You're working with like your stakeholders, usually with the legal team, marketing managers, the engineering team. So it's important, I think, to just be sharing data, having common goals, and I'll just give like a quick example of like how, like, you use data cross-functionally is like if you have a page, maybe your form isn't being completed, maybe you have a checkout cart that's, multiple pages, you'll be monitoring, checking your data for that. And, if it's something you want to improve upon, we'll go back with the data to our other teams and talk about what can we do to maybe improve this experience, right? So you might be working with like the UX team, a creative team, a marketing manager, and that sort, to just pull everything together.
And so, speaking a little bit more about kind of the team organization, how do you make sure that the team stays adaptable? How do you keep up with industry trends to identify places to innovate?
So, a couple things here. So, just to keep up with trends, I think nowadays there's just so many different places you can go to learn about what's happening. There's blogs, you can find stuff on social media these days, LinkedIn, videos, there's conferences, right? Just like this one, there's virtual ones, in-person ones. I think it's important to see what other companies are doing. And it doesn't always have to be companies that are in your industry or your competitor. It's just interesting to see what all companies are doing. And I think Andy also touched on this point, to remind ourselves that we're also consumers, right? So you'll have your own personal experiences with other companies. You'll find something engaging, enticing. And I think it's important to stop and think about, like, what about that experience, did I like, made me engage, and is that something I can apply in my business or my professional life, and to create that same experience for your own customers.
I love that mindset because, yeah, to your point, we're all consumers. We all have like engaged with brands all the time in different ways. And if you have an experience that really wows you or resonates with you, thinking about like what from this interaction can I steal and apply to what I'm working on can be a really powerful thing. And also, I find that it helps too with explaining like complex topics to other folks on the team. Like if you're saying, this is what I'm trying to create for us, it helps to be able to point to like a consumer example that everybody can wrap their heads around and figure out a path forward on. So Eumee, thank you for coming to speak with us and share more of your story today. Really appreciate the time and the insights that you've shared.
Thank you as well.
So we have 3 minutes left here. Want to leave you with a few final thoughts, and then Angelica has one fun housekeeping announcement to make. If I could leave you with kind of like 3 parting words, embracing change. We all know that the pace of innovation is speeding up, and it's a fun time to be in this ecosystem. So leading into it, finding ways to adopt new and exciting things. But at the same time, kind of moving to point number 2, sorting out like what is hype and what do I need to take with a grain of salt here. Making strategic decisions for your organization with a very measured view on what will add value. And then lastly, being bold. I think sometimes we overestimate risk and underestimate ourselves, but leading into the challenge and thinking about like what will be the difference maker and like what do I want to learn along the way. So Angelica, I'll pass you for the final announcement.
Awesome. I have everybody's favorite slide up, swag. Yes, we have Trailblazer hoodies. So make sure throughout the event that you're staying engaged in chats and QA and network with your fellow Trailblazers. Share your LinkedIn profiles. We'll be selecting winners and following up via email. So make sure you keep an eye out. Thank you everyone for attending today's opening keynote. Go enjoy the rest of your Dreaming day. You are fully prepped to get your notebooks ready, get your pen and papers ready, take all the notes you can, and really enjoy the learning experience. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your Dreaming day.